Hello and welcome back to the most overlooked Pokemon in the McMaster Draft League. Today we're going to be looking at the B tier. That includes B+, B, and B-. I'm joined by Aabrar.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Aabrar here. Excited to talk about some Pokemon with you guys.
And Albert.
Hey guys, yeah, same as Aabrar. Big fan of Pokemon,
It's gonna be really fun. We're gonna talk about 4 Pokemon in specific, but before we start, I want to mention if you guys want a specific Pokemon, so like next week we're probably gonna be talking about C tier Mons. If you want a C tier Mon to be focused, I want you to send in a list of sets, maybe some descriptions as to what makes them good, some describers, stuff like that, and we will feature them on the podcast, and it'll be great. So I want you guys to do that. So we're gonna start off with Whimsicott, and Aabrar is gonna talk about Whimsicott. So what do you have to say about Whimsicott?
Alright, so when you first look at Whimsicott, a couple things stand out. There's really nice typing in Grass Fairy. Gives it a lot of cool resistances to really scary offensive types in draft like Dark, Electric, Water, and a nice immunity to Dragon. Fills in the nice fairy slot in a draft roster really well that I feel every draft should have. Another thing that stands out is amazing 116 speed. That speed's the 115 speed tier and the 110 speed tiers. That's where you can find stuff like Latios and Latias, like those kinds of dragon types. And you'll notice its bulk is like okay, like it's mediocre, 60, 85, 75 bulk, and a really lackluster special attack stat, but it has really tricky ways to circumvent that. And I want to get directly into how it can circumvent that. So the first set we're going to talk about with Whimsicott is the Choice Spec set. So this quickly alleviates the issue it has with its special attack, which is only base 77, so this boosts it. And then it has really nice attacks in Energy Ball and Moonblast. It's really nice high-powered, safe stab attacks. And then you can run Hidden Power Fire or whatever coverage move you need for like any other threats like Steel types, like Ferrothorn or anything quad weak to fire. And the main draw of this set actually, aside from boosting your special attack stat, is using Switcheroo. Now, Switcheroo is a move that switches your item with the opposing Pokemon. So let's say someone tries to throw in their Chansey, you can give them a Choice Specs and take their Violite, and that means the Chansey is locked into only using one move, and then has to switch out, and then you can switch moves, right? But another cool thing is that Switcheroo is actually boosted by its amazing ability in Prankster, which boosts the priority of non-attacking moves by 1 stage. So your moves like Switcheroo go first. That's pretty much the spec set. In terms of other coverage, it gets other moves like you can run Psychic, you can run Shadow Ball if you need be. If you don't really need Switcheroo, you can run Stun Spore. Gives you a nice priority way to paralyze things. It does lock you into it, but it's a nice surprise.
Before you move on, I wanted to ask something.
Yeah.
I noticed you just had a timid nature, but with no speed investment. Was that intentional, or was that a mistake in importing, or like?
Oh, is there no speed EVs?
Yeah, like on this set in the video here, like what I imported, it has no speed EVs. It has max HP, max defense.
For the Choice Spec set?
Yeah, that's weird.
Oh, it shouldn't be that. It should be max special attack, max speed, timid.
Okay.
It should be that.
Okay, that just must be like some problem with the importing. That's strange.
Well, that's weird.
Okay.
Weird. Another note I want to go actually before we move on is if you don't actually need all that speed against your enemy roster, you can change the nature to boost special attack and hit a bit harder. So you can run a modest nature. It still lets you outspeed the base 100 speed tier, which is really nice. So there's a couple of options you can run like that. That's a big thing at draft. You don't need to run max speed. Just run as much speed as you need to, be faster than whatever you need to be.
Yep.
Anyway, I want to get into the next set. This is actually, I was researching this Pokemon. This is a personal favorite set of mine that I found completely fun to play against. This is Substitute Leech Seed Whimsicott. Both of those moves are boosted by Prankster, so they usually go first. So this lets you hide behind a substitute, and then you can Leech Seed the opposing Pokemon, and then you can just stall them out with Protect, or you can actually replace this Protect with Toxic, and get even more residual damage. I don't know, really fun to play against.
Yeah.
This set, if you run Protect, actually beats Heatran 1v1 because they just can't beat your subs and get your HP down because you just heal up again. This set, you can tailor it to beat some really cool stuff like Heatran. The last move I picked to be Moonblast because in Generation 7, Dark types are actually immune to Prankster moves that would affect them directly. So this just lets you hit Dark types that might try to screw over the set. It's a straightforward set. The EVs I chose were to be really bulky so that even if they manage to get off a hit, you're going to try to minimize the damage you take and then heal up again. So this set aims to just hide behind substitutes, slowly wear down the opposition, and just really annoy the opponent that way. So that's pretty much it for the Subseed set.
I'm curious about this next one, Anti-Steve.
Steve, for those who aren't familiar, is notorious for running Rain like everywhere that he plays, like whether it's series or whether it's draft.
Yeah, he's
so this is not just to beat Rain. This can beat Sand teams as well, actually. So this is Prankster Sunny Day Whimsicott. So with a Heat Rock, this doesn't have to be Heat Rock. It can be Life Orb if you want it to be. So the aim of this set is to change the weather to Sun. And once you have the Sun, your Solar Beam doesn't have to charge. So you have a really strong Grass type move. Moonblast is another strong secondary step, and Hidden Power Fire is actually boosted by the Sun. So you have a nice strong Fire type attack. So I know that Whimsicott does have the ability Chlorophyll, which can double its speed in the Sun, which you can run if you need the speed, but I think Prankster is really nice to guarantee basically setting up that Sunny Day and just firing off powerful attacks. The EV spread I chose, Whimsicott has enough speed to outspeed any Swift swimmer, like Kingdra, after you change the weather. So once you set up the Sun, Kingdra's max speed is 295, you're 296, so you outspeed it and hit it with Moonblast. Maximize special attack and boost it. Just throw the rest in the HP, give it some bulk.
It also hard counters Kingdra because it resists both of its stabs. It's immune to Dragon.
It is. Yeah. You do have to be wary about Ice Beam, but once you change the weather, you can destroy with the Moonblast.
Yeah.
The next and last set for Whimsicott is kind of like a standard, 2-stab attack set, and then a utility move, and then U-turn. So this is like an offensive pivot. The item doesn't have to be Pixie Plate. It can be whatever you need it to be. If you need your grass move to be stronger, you can run the grass plate. If you want some passive recovery, you can run leftovers here. So the aim of this set is to have 2 attacks and then 2 utility moves. It doesn't have to be just Taunt or U-turn. This Pokemon gets a ton of utility. It gets Encore, it gets Light Screen, it gets a lot of moves. You can run Leech Seed for more more recovery.
Get Sleep Powder too.
Sorry?
Get Sleep Powder, I'm pretty sure.
No, it does get Stun Spore though.
Wait.
It doesn't get Sleep Powder.
Never mind. Ignore me, but yeah.
And another really cool move it gets is Tailwind. So this is a Prankster Tailwind, so you'll guarantee getting off a move that doubles your entire team's speed for a few turns. So there's a lot of utility you can run, Toxic, whatever you need. So yeah, that's pretty much it about Whimsicott. I guess a couple other notable moves you can run on any of the sets are Knockoff to remove items, and Hurricane gives you really strong flying type attack to beat opposing grass types.
I want to point out one move. This move actually beat Matt S in one of the seasons. It was Cotton Guard, I believe it gets, right?
Oh yeah, it does get Cotton Guard. I forgot to mention that.
It gets Cotton Guard, and it's pretty good. Like, if in a counter team meta, it's pretty good. If you can, see the opening to use it with Prankster, like right before a strong physical hit. I remember specifically Someone used it against Matt S. He had Garchomp, and Garchomp Stone Edged, and he used Cotton Guard on that turn, and it completely negated the Stone Edge, and it was awesome. And I think it was the Matt S's first loss of the season, so like that will always stick with me. Like if I ever draft Whimsicott, I'll definitely keep that Cotton Guard in the back of my head.
Yeah, definitely, that's a good idea. You know, raising your defense by 3 stages is no joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Whimsicott is overall a really strong pick for its tier, in the B tiers. So I think this is really worthwhile Pokemon to look into. And yeah, that's Whimsicott.
Oh, and one last thing before moving on.
Yeah.
One thing that wasn't mentioned is this is how I mainly used Whimsicott in the UU ladder. Was if I knew my opponent was gonna set up, I hard switch to Whimsicott and Encore them, and it completely ruins them with Prankster. Like
yeah, Prankster Encore. Yeah.
Prankster Encore is amazing. So like that's another option. I don't know,
because it locks them into their setup move. Yeah, you're right.
Did you mention that? I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping.
I think I did mention Encore. If I didn't, well, now we did.
Yeah. It's very counter to play versus.
I love Encore. Okay, the next mon we're going to talk about is Scolipede, and Albert's going to talk about it.
Alright, okay, so this is my boy Scolipede. People think he's bad because Baton Pass got banned, and he was like, oh yeah, this guy's a speed passing guy. But nope, he's actually really good right now, and in my opinion, he's very under-tiered because he has 2 main functions right now. You can either run him as the big boy sweeper or a suicide lead. So I'm just gonna go over its typing real quick. It's bug poison. It's mediocre. It's weak to psychic. Gets bopped by earthquake. Gets bopped by pincer. I love pincer, so I don't know why I brought that up, but it's all right. It's nothing great offensively, but also nothing great defensively. So the first set I'm gonna go over is Monica, or the Waterium Z Speed Boost Sword Stance set. It's very basic. You set up a Sword Stance on something that you threaten, like, for example, Hoopa or, I don't know, Ferrothorn. You get free Sword Stances up on them, and then you just destroy the rest of the team with your 3 coverage move. This is the standard OU set, just because Waterium Z Aqua Tail destroys Lando at +1. But in draft, you can tailor this to whatever you want. You can use the Z Crystal Mega Horn, and I think +2 Mega Horn probably knocks out Ferrothorn. You can use Groundium Z to knock out Heatran. And this thing's offensive move pool is surprisingly deep. As you'll see later, it gets stuff like Rock Slide and Superpower. So it's not like it's starved for coverage or anything. The EPs are very straightforward. It's Adamant with max attack. You can afford to run Adamant here just because it gets speed boost. So at +1 speed, I think you outspeed everything 100 plus speed higher and higher. So that gives you a pretty good buffer. That way you don't need to run Jolly, and the extra attack really hurts. So yeah, that's their basic best girl set. Love Monica. Moving on to the Suicide Lead set. This is exactly what you would expect it to be. You can protect once, get your speed boost, and then just set up all the hazards you ever wanted. Get Spikes and Toxic Spikes, both of which are extremely good in this meta right now. Might change with Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Moon, because everything gets defogged there. But as of right now, Spikes and Toxic Spikes are so good. And Toxic Spikes provide a really good win con for a team. If you're looking to draft Suicune, that's a really good mon to pair with it.
Wink.
Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge. Anyways, Focus Sash to always survive a hit. And basically, unless the enemy has Taunt, you can get up both layers of Spikes. And even if they do have Taunt, you can usually get up at least 1 layer of Spikes. I would say this is good for a hyper offense draft if you want to draft a sample team, or if you just want to run a hazard stack team. So that's what I would run it for. Again, EVs are super basic, just max HP for a little bit of bulk, but 248 because that gives you a Stealth Rocks number. Basically, it means that you can switch into Stealth Rock 5 times instead of 4. And max speed to outspeed stuff. Right? Very simple. Next set is the Life Orb Sweeper. Also very simple, also very linear. Basically the same thing as the first set, except for you trade a Life Orb you trade your Z move for a Life Orb. And this just Life Orb gives you a surprisingly large boost in terms of attacking stats. So whereas like that just means that you don't necessarily need to set up Sword Stance in order to sweep an enemy. Also, more importantly here, you don't need to make Scolipede your Z captain here, just because you can just slap a life orb on it. It'll be just as effective. Of course, this being draft, you probably want your Z captain to be something good, like Celesteela or Volcarona, and not something garbage like Ronamo. Yeah, I learned that from experience. All right, so we're going to move on to the next set. This is kind of an interesting set. I got this from Ubers, actually. And it's a Spike's anti-lead set. So there's a few things that go into this set. First of all, Pin Missile instead of Mega Horn. In Ubers, this is to break Focus Sashes. But in this case, you can also break substitutes. Pin Missile is probably a better option in some cases as a lead set, just because there's a rare occasion it might break through a Focus Sash. And if you're going to run Mega Horn on a Suicide lead set, it's probably going to be just to break Focus Sashes from your opponent's lead. The other part about this set that makes it different from the first Suicide lead set is Endeavor, because Endeavor plus a Focus Sash means you can bring your opponent down to 1 health and just pave the way for another Mon of yours to sweep. Basically, yeah, it just cripples an opponent's Mon, just right there and there.
I want to say what's interesting about Endeavor plus Speed Boost is on the first turn, you can spike, and they'll break you down to the Sash. Say if you're even slower, by the time the second turn comes around with Speed Boost, you're probably faster, so you can Endeavor them before you die. You know what I mean? Like, that's actually really cool.
Yeah. It basically pretty much guarantees that you'll bring something down to 1 health.
Yeah, because normally I feel like you have to predict with Endeavor. Kind of like if they're going to attack you. But with this set, you almost don't have to predict the Endeavor unless they have priority. And they can priority you on the second turn.
I gotcha. Yeah, it's a pretty drawback-free Endeavor.
Yeah, I actually really like that.
Yeah.
What is the protect for again?
Just a speed boost.
True.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessary, honestly, with Focus Sash and as a Suicide lead. I don't know if it's really necessary to protect.
There's a lot you could run in that slot. Like, you can run Toxic or Toxic Spikes there. That's probably the most common. Right? And
that makes sense.
Yeah. The last set I want to go over is kind of a weird set. You don't expect it, but it's Choice Banded. It does a lot of damage. Scolipede sits at a really great speed here without speed boost. It outspeeds both Megas, both Lotties, sorry. And it outspeeds all the Justice Mons. Aabrar will be good to hear that.
Oh.
And it's, like I said previously, its move pool is surprisingly good. It gets Bug, which is kind of an ass stab, but you combine that with Edgequake coverage from Rockslide and Earthquake, Superpower to break through Steel types, and if you're really struggling with them, you can also run Poison Jab to break through Fairy types. In this case, Swarm is probably better than Speed Boost, because if you get below that threshold, your Mega Horn will be bopping shit really badly.
I don't know.
So yeah. That, but... Okay. Well, in this case, I think this is like the one case where you might substitute Speed Boost out.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. But like, as a sweeper, like I just feel like I could just imagine myself bonking stuff with Mega Horn and then speeding up on every subsequent turn and just sweeping. Like I could see a sweep very easily with this.
I'd argue that the Choice Bandit set is probably better as like a wall breaker. But yeah, I can see that too. One last thing I want to say before we switch off of Scolipede is you can easily speed creep this thing. So you can just calculate, for example, which of your opponent's Mons are slower and you need to outspeed them, and you can just run enough speed investment so that you outspeed just that. Scolipede sits at a kind of a weird speed tier, so
at 112.
Yeah, you can always speed creep the Lotties, and you can always speed creep 110s, 105s, and 100s. And the extra bit of bulk really goes a surprisingly long way. That might be the difference between getting knocked out and surviving and winning the game. So,
are you talking about in the defense?
Yeah. Just run extra speed in defense, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that always helps a lot. So, yeah, that's just like a kind of general word of advice, not just for Scolipede, but Scolipede's probably like one of the better abusers of this because of its ability.
Okay.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say about this boy. I'm going to pass it over to Martin, who's going to talk about his boy.
The Quack God. Quagsire. Okay, like if you look at its stats, it's kind of underwhelming. Really underwhelming, actually. It reminds me of Clefable, which also is an unaware mon. Like, they're both really underwhelming statistically. Only 95 HP, 85 defense, and only 65 SPDEF. So, like, you're kind of forced to run it as a physical wall. And even then, it's not even a wall. Like, it's very susceptible to bonking. So, I feel like the reason this hasn't been drafted before is just because it's very specific. It's a very niche physical wall, and I feel like you have to have a team that needs Quagsire. You don't build around Quagsire. Quagsire is like the perfect piece to your team. So I don't want to talk about Quagsire too long because there's not much it can do, but if your team needs Quagsire, it's almost like a godsend. Just very quickly about its abilities. Obviously, it has Unaware, which if you're unaware, I came up with that on the spot, to be honest. If you're unaware, it pretty much protects you from boosting sweepers, essentially, especially physical ones. It ignores your opponent's offensive stat boosts. I'm actually drawing a blank here. If they like Calm Mind, for example, will Scald do less damage to them?
You ignore all of their stat boosts.
Yeah, that's why it's such a good answer to like stuff like Tailglow, Manaphy, or Xurkitree.
Well, yeah, but like, say if they Calm Mind a bunch, every time they Calm Mind, will Scald do less
No, you
damage?
ignore it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it does nothing.
There's
It
that.
does. Yeah.
Also, on the flip side, if say they superpower you, superpower will do the same amount of damage every time, no matter what. But
Well, no. Yes.
yeah, well.
Yes, it will.
But yeah, so it has Unaware and Water Absorb. Those are probably the only two notable abilities. I've seen Damp used unironically when they predicted a self-destruct fortress. That was kind of absurd when I saw that, but like it was pretty crazy, but I liked it.
That's fire. I love that.
That was Fitz versus Damien in an Uber battle. Like, it was hilarious. Water Absorb, I feel like it's very counter-teamy, but it could work in a very specific situation. Like, for example, Water Absorb does very well against Rotom Wash. It eats Hydro Pump, it eats Volt Switch. What can Rotom Wash? The standard Rotom Wash can't touch the Water Absorb Quagsire.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's move on to the sets. I don't really have much. I only have 3 sets here with Quagsire. Hold on. Okay, so the first set we're going to talk about is what I call the Curse set. And this consists of Scald, Earthquake, Curse, and Recover. And the idea is when you've kind of filtered your opponent's team down to only physical attackers, you can Curse up and honestly close out the game, especially if you scout for Toxics and know if you can be toxic or not, or say if you have a Heal Beller in the back. This set can really cause your opponent damage. And the beauty of Scald is say if you have an opponent you can't touch, Scald can burn them and wear them down. And honestly, if not for Recover, Quagsire would be trash. But Recover really closes out Quagsire. So that's all I really have to say. And one common theme you're going to see here is literally this is the EV spread for every Quagsire set. Max HP, max defense, Impish. Like, that's literally all you can do. Or it doesn't even have to be Impish. It could be negative speed as well, which, let's see what that's called. I don't know off the top of my head. Relaxed. So max defense minus speed if you really want.
I just have a question about the Curse set EV spread. Could you run max special defense if the situation calls for it? Because you're boosting your defense.
Yeah, you could, but I just feel like the SpedF is so bad, and we're going to talk about the stockpile set later, but I've tried the stockpile set with max SpedF, and like, even after like +2 max SpedF, it still doesn't take SPDEF hits. It's really bad.
No.
So like it's almost better to just specify in defense. It's after all, it's only 65 SPDEF. So this is an interesting set to just close out a game. It's very weird. And I have to say, Quagsire is best on stall teams that need something to wall physical attackers, especially Dragon Dancers. This is like the antithesis to Dragon Dance.
Yeah, this was the hard Zardex counter back in Gen 6.
Yeah. I don't know why I started with Curse instead of the standard set. This set doesn't set up. I feel like it's more of a pivot, but I'm not much of a Pokemon terminology connoisseur, so I don't know if it's exactly a pivot, but
It's a wall.
yeah, like it comes in on a physical hit. You know your opponent is gonna kind of read a recover or a scald or something, and you just toxic on the switch and you cripple something because on stall toxic is king, and that's what you need to do. So yeah, it's the same idea. Toxic, recover. And yeah, not much to say. Again, another physical wall. And again, Quagsire, I wanted to feature it because it's been seldom drafted. Almost no one ever drafts it. And maybe that's because it doesn't have the variety of Whimsicott or Scolipede or the next Mon we're going to talk about. But it's a really good Mon. That's why I wanted to bring it up. So the last set we're going to talk about is Stockpile. And this is my almost signature set. And like low-key, I'm not going to lie, I stole this set from Verlicify. I googled Quagsire on YouTube, or I searched up Quagsire on YouTube, and one thing I noticed about Verlicify videos is he'll always suggest minimize, he'll always suggest stockpile, and he always suggests like any stupid ass boosting move like Iron Defense or something. Like he'll always suggest those. But the thing about Quagsire, I was like, whoa, Stockpile actually really works on Quagsire with Unaware. Like, it's really damn good. So,
I think it's the best Stockpile user that I can honestly think of off the top of my head.
It's better than Driftblim, right? That's the other one I'm thinking of.
In a way, like, Clefable, Unaware Clefable can run, like, Cosmic Power, which is, like, the same idea, but better. And same with Sigilif. But just Stockpile and Unaware is so good, especially if you're like in draft. It kind of seems like opponents are a little bit like unaware of what you're what you're capable of. So like I just feel like Stockpile is a good surprise. It surprisingly can like eat hits after one or two stockpiles. Maybe not like specs SPDEF hits, but I remember like I had a match where it was Quagsire versus Magnezone, HP Grass Magnezone, and it couldn't break it. I think it was like an Assault Vest Magnezone with HP Grass, and it couldn't break it. And that's last thing I wanted to mention about Quagsire is its typing Water Ground is one of the best typings. It's weak to Grass, but it makes it a little bit obvious what your opponent's gonna do, and that's its only weakness. So I think Water Ground is one of the best typings, and it does have stiff competition between Seismitoad, Swampert, and Gastrodon.
Yeah, Gastrodon.
But it has its niche, and it's really good. And that's all I have to say about Quagsire. That went a little bit longer than I expected, but I'm sorry. Do you guys have anything to say about Quagsire?
Not much, but if you do want to see Quagsire in action, there's a great monotype replay where Quagsire literally is 5-0's a rain team. It's beauty. It's actual art to watch.
Please don't remind me.
The last one we're gonna talk about is Araquanid, and the thing I love about Araquanid, actually, it's not about I don't know. I just love the idea of Choice Banded Liquidation in Rain. It's like music to my ears, but I know it does more than that. Like, the idea, Choice Band Liquidation in Rain. Does it get better than that? I don't know.
I mean, if you can think of something better than a water move that 2-hit KOs Assault Vest Tangrowth, And I mean, if you can think of something better cooling that sound, better sounding than that, then maybe.
Yeah.
In
But
rain,
anyway,
baby.
all right, I want to get into Araquanid now. You know, new Gen 7 Pokemon, Araquanid, kind of flew under the radar in OU, and rightfully so. But it picked up steam with a couple different sets actually for a bit. So a couple things that stand out about Araquanid is very unique water bug typing. Water bug typing at first doesn't sound remarkable, but then you realize it walls the best dual stab like one of the best dual stabs in ice ground. It resists both of those. Has a really nice ground resistance, and at first you think, oh, it's neutral to fire, but its main ability you're gonna run like most of the time, Water Bubble, actually gives it a resistance to fire. So this thing is really good typing, and I want to get a bit into the first set, and for most of the sets, you'll see a couple moves that are repetitively used. That's because they're so good in Araquanid. So the first set is Choice Band, and this Choice Band set abuses the ability Water Bubble, doubling the power of water moves. So that you'll see Liquidation and you'll see Leech Life for dual stab. You really don't need a whole lot else outside of that. Sleep Talk makes it a sleep absorber, so you can switch it in on spores and stuff. And you're gonna question, why is there 2 water moves on a Choice Band set? And that's because when you Sleep Talk, you really want to use those water moves because they hit twice as hard with that water bubble ability. So this actually makes it a 2 out of 3 chance to use a water move once you're asleep. Of course, if you don't need that, you can run things like Poison Jab, you can run Crunch, as niche as it might sound. If you predict switch-ins, you can run Toxic. Choice Banded Toxic is a set on some Pokemon like Choice Band and Zygarde to cripple things like Tangrowth on Switch, but this boy in the rain, as we said, 2 hit KOs, a Selfish Tangrowth with Liquidation. Like, this man's a monster. So yeah, the next thing I'm going to talk about is a Stall Breaker set. So this set only uses 1 attack and Liquidation, and it boosts it through Rain Dance and a Splash Plate. And then it uses Rest and Sleep Talk to stay healthy through the entire game, and you can't Toxic it because you rest, you can't whittle it down with Seismic Toss because you rest, and you just smack everything with Liquidation. This set can actually muscle through Toxic packs by just fishing for defense drops with Liquidation. The 20% drop rate is really, really nice. And like, they can't do anything to you. Like, if they Toxic you, you rest it off, you can't even be burned because of Water Bubble. Like, Water Bubble prevents you from being burned. So you can just lead with this Rain Dance and click water moves. So the speed on this is enough to outspeed a lot of passive Pokemon. This outspeeds as far as Celesteela with minimum speed.
Mhm.
Then it maximizes attack and just, puts the rest into HP for some bulk. It's a straightforward set, boost your water moves, hit stuff, stay healthy with Rest Talk. Next set is, what you might immediately see when you use Araquanid after looking at that special defense stat. And it's an Assault Vest set. So this uses Liquidation and Leech Life for dual stabs. The Leech Life keeps you healthy with healing. Scald here is for fishing for burns, really. So that passive, so like you're not entirely physical stuff bait, even though you aren't really anyway with Liquidation. And then Mirror Coat, which lets you eat special attack moves and then just one-shot them back with Mirror Coat, because you deal back double the damage. So it's a really straightforward set, honestly. Could run the coverage I talked about earlier, but Araquanid sets aren't really like tremendously flexible, but it can do really cool techniques like Assault Vest, Mirror Coat, stuff like that. And the last set I want to talk about is a Trapper set that relies on Toxic and Infestation to trap things and beat them 1v1. So like, and then the other moves are just dual stabs with Leech Life to gain some health, and Leftovers to give you some more recovery. The speed is... Sorry, the speed is to outspeed things like base 50 Pokemon. Yeah, that's a straightforward set. Infestation keeps them in for 4 to 5 turns. Throw in a Toxic, hit them repeatedly, and you can take out a lot of stuff. So it's not just Assault Vest Pokemon when you look at the special defense. It's not just Choice Band. does have some cool tech with Rest Talk and Infestation. I didn't talk about the water absorbability, but as Martin talked about, it's a really unique ability that can really counter team some stuff. Like, it doesn't take much from water moves anyway already, but water absorb just can completely nullify a water attack, so it is worth considering when you build. But do keep in mind it makes you burnable, it does remove a fire resistance, and it weakens your water moves a lot if you choose to go with water absorb.
Yeah, but it counters Suicune.
I'm not getting into that.
Debatable.
It doesn't beat Suicune.
I think it might be good with the Trapper set. If you just trap something, eat water.
Suicune can
moves.
rest. That's the
No,
thing.
I'm not talking about specifically this weekend, but one thing I wanted to say is I didn't know Miracle worked in Assault Vest.
Yeah, it's a special attack.
Yeah,
Yeah,
technically counts as an attack. Same with counter.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That's pretty much, yeah, fun fact. That's Pukimiku's only attacking move, counter.
Interesting. It doesn't
Attacking.
get Miracle?
No, it doesn't get mirror code. I searched this up.
Anyway, yeah, that sums up Rockmanid.
Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. So I guess that wraps up this episode of Underrated Mods, and before we sign off, I do want to repeat again. If you have a mod that you want to be talked about, submit it. Maybe submit a PokePaste with an explanation of some of the sets, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to do C next. It's going to be awesome. C is one of my favorite tiers. I think C plus might be Mon by Mon the best tier in the draft. That's my opinion, but I love C. So yeah, do you guys have any final thoughts?
Do we want to take? Do we just want to open it up so like we'll take suggestions for all the tiers?
Sure, I'm down for that, but we
Yeah.
would have to split it up into many different podcasts.
Actually, that would be a better idea. So suggest anything.
Yeah, just a mon you like.
Yeah. That's overlooked. That's important.
Yeah,
Not just
Yeah.
that you like it. Because, like,
don't suggest Lele.
I swear the Mons we talked about right now, Whimsicott, I don't think it's been drafted since points. Scolipede, not drafted since points. Araquanid drafted once since
Yeah, it was
points.
Ramadan.
Wait, I think Alex M also drafted
Okay,
it last
then it
season.
got drafted twice.
Okay, twice. And Quagsire, I swear it's been once since points.
Well,
have been
you have
drafted.
it right now, so.
Yeah, I think that's the one time. So, like, yeah, overlooked mods. We want to see some overlooked mods. And, like, we take pride in tiers. I think the tiers are really well balanced, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for the
I think
most
so, too.
part. There are some mons that are under tiered for sure, and some that are over tiered, but for the most part, it's very balanced.
Yeah, so, like, the fact that some go undrafted is kind of interesting. Like, we want to discuss why and maybe, like, what teams they would fit on.
Okay.
So, on that note, we're going to call it quits. Say bye, guys.
Alright, see ya, guys.
Yeah, see you later.
See ya.